funny. There we go. Looks like a bunch of you are connecting. And as you are connecting, I'll just take a second, as I always do, to formally welcome all of you to this workshop. Welcome if you are totally energetic and jazzed and ready to be here, especially after such engaging conversation last week. And welcome as well if you're feeling maybe distracted or tired. There's a lot going on in the world these days. Welcome back again if you were here last week. And if you are joining us for the first time, please reach out to me and get a recording of last week's session. These are kind of a two-parter. And even if you were here last week and you want to listen to last week again, like I do, reach out and we can make sure that you get that recording. Welcome if you're Indigenous American, African American, Asian Pacific American, if you're from a Latinx background, or if you're European American. If you're some combination of the above, or if you're none of the above, welcome to all. Welcome to our female participants and the males. Welcome if you're trans, and welcome if your gender expression is beyond the gender binary. Welcome if you come from a farming background, and welcome if you're just getting started. Welcome to the lesbians here, the gay men, bisexuals, and queers, and welcome to those whose sexuality don't easily label. Welcome also to the heterosexuals. Welcome if you know exactly why you're here, and welcome if you don't. Welcome to those with hidden disabilities. Welcome to those whose disabilities are apparent. And finally, welcome to the sad, happy, angry, hopeful, desperate, silly, goofy, serious parts of ourselves. We always bring a lot into these virtual rooms, and I love that. As always, if there are aspects of our diversity that I've left out, please feel free to let me know. And finally, since we are all tied to the land, I'd like to welcome the ancestors who lived in this land before us, to acknowledge the indigenous people whose homeland we are now stewarding. I am in Sisters, Oregon, on land originally owned by the Confederated Tribes of Tenino, Warm Springs, Siletz Indians, and Grand Ronde. Of course, we heard a lot about the history of our lands last week, whether it's the theft of land from indigenous tribes, land that became the backbone of America's agricultural economy, which really laid the foundation for the supposedly prosperous nation in which we all live and from which some of us benefit more than others today, or the enslavement of people from the African continent who, besides suffering unspeakable inhumanity, were the physical engine behind the American agricultural machine. More land was promised and more land was stolen and given to white Europeans, resulting in less than 1% of rural lands in this country being owned by Black people today. And finally, the dependence on and invisibility of the descendants of the Bracero Program, Mexican, North, Central, and South American migrant workers, brought to this country to support America in a time of need and continuing to this day to perform highly skilled and completely uncompensated labor, denied basic rights and treated as second-class citizens. The legacy of all of the above are baked into the American agricultural system, baked into the land we tend, the crops we grow, and the food we eat. Stolen land and stolen labor, the hands and the lands on which we rely. So just listening and reflecting on all that we covered last week is, in a sense, the most honest way to perform a land acknowledgement. Today, we're going to hear a bit more about some actions that Michelle, AnAkA, and Javier and their organizations have taken, and suggestions perhaps of ways to engage for justice and equitable change. There will also be a chance for us all to share conversation and continue proposing ideas, reflections, and our hearts. We all have the capacity to learn from each other. I ask, as we do that in dialogue, that we treat one another with respect and compassion. Speak from your own experience, listen for understanding, and challenge ideas, not people. With that, we're going to get right into hearing from our presenters again. And at the end of this, at the end of our sort of kind of structured presentation time, we will be opening this up for just general conversation. So thank you once again, Michelle, AnAkA, and Javier, for joining us. And with that, Michelle, I'll hand it off to you.
All right, thank you. So I put together another little slide. Let me share real quick. His season has begun. I am seeding plants every day now. We are well underway, getting the farm going. Here we go. All right, why do I always do that? Slideshow. Voila. So again, hello everybody. I am Michelle. I use she, her pronouns. I am the owner and primary farmer on Husquiet, which translates from my Sinai Arrow Lakes language to Good Rain Farm in English. This was just a nice logo photo page. And again, here we are talking about land justice and how we might go about achieving it. It'll be a long road. It's been some time as we've been going down the one we've been on. So finding a new pathway forward will take a moment as well. So today I wanted to talk kind of in actionable, proactive steps, ways that both individuals and as farmers and business owners, because I imagine a lot of folks are hoping to start farms or are operating farms who are attending these courses. So a little bit about how the business, so not just you as the individual, but you as the business could consider different tactics on how to approach creating more equity and correcting some of our past wrongs, doing some reparations and remediation work. And so those are kind of our two starting considerations. The individual, you are already doing something really great on this list, learning, coming to events like this, absorbing what is sometimes very uncomfortable knowledge to learn, and an uncomfortable reality and history to confront and really grapple with. I am mixed. I also have a lot of French heritage, right? So when we talked about last week, I come from Colville Confederate Tribes, which is central Washington. The Arrow Lakes are north central. So we exist both in Canada and in America. And my particular family chose to go south to the Colville Reservation, but a lot of our tribal members stayed north in Canada as well. So we got kind of divided and cut in half. But that means there's a lot of French fur trading in that area. So I have a lot of French European ancestry as well. And a lot of that settler colonization background in my ancestors, as well as my native ancestors. So grappling with those two is always a difficult process. So learning is the number one for you, the individual. I think taking time to be introspective and reflect on reactions and things that come up throughout our life and our life experiences is really important to kind of pull apart, where did that feeling come from? Where did that reaction come from in me? Why did I have that? And addressing those. Oh, I should have looked it up. I think it's White Supremacy and Me by Layla. Oh, it starts with an S. It's a really good workbook. I've really enjoyed it. I try to do it annually. And it's just a good mindfulness practice and an awareness practice to go through that book. And then, of course, like, get to the nitty gritty of things, personal budgets. I know that we're not all like Jeff Bezos here today. We're not all super flush, but we also all come from different places that we are, with different privileges and different access and different safety nets. And we don't all have those. So recognizing all of those levels of privileges and kind of creating some bumper rails or guidelines for yourself in your personal life. And so I have buying guidelines here, and I have a slide specifically for that. But also participating in solidarity economy, which for me, my buying guidelines really like uplift and hold. budgeting for mutual aid support, so direct support without any strings attached, without any asks or anything in return, right, are really important. And then I have rent here, but there's some voluntary taxation and voluntary rent programs popping up to support Indigenous people to pay us back, pay the tribes back for the land that was lost, that we were never ever compensated for, especially financially. We were never given any money for it. And so that like, as we spoke last week, really like solidified this the lack of intergenerational wealth in Indigenous communities. And so that's one way to begin approaching that. And there's a lot of different ways one can calculate that rent. And we have another whole slide on that. Sharing knowledge, so not hoarding knowledge, but also not being so fearful to have uncomfortable conversations with friends, families, colleagues, people you meet at conferences, whatnot, right? Kind of call out some poor behavior you see and racist behavior you might see or hear. And share that knowledge with people, right? You are building this knowledge of awareness, and we need to share that knowledge. And for me, I see a lot of scarcity mindset in all walks of life and in all spaces. And I think really shaking that idea that there isn't enough for everybody. There's definitely enough for everybody. And no one's going to go without, and we're not taking away from anybody. We're uplifting others, and making sure everyone has like the same shared access and livability standards. I really, it's frustrating to me to watch scarcity mindset set in. And it definitely happens for me. And, you know, again, that's back to that introspective and reflective work of doing this work within oneself, and kind of asking why and where is that coming from, and breaking it down. And then, of course, advocacy. So doing some legislative work and talking to local officials. It's not, you know, none of these are the silver bullet. It takes all of this, from personal to societal to governmental, to try to kind of I don't like saying right this wrong or whatever, but to kind of start tackling and correcting course. And so then we have the business, which is very similar. So your farm and your workplace. So whether you're a farm owner or a employee of a farm, or a land steward, I think there's always, you know, parts here where we're always learning. And for me in the farm, that means all of our documents are living documents. We're always kind of, I attempt annually, biannually to kind of scrutinize the language we're using. Is it exclusionary? Is it welcoming? Is it what's slipped in that, you know, now I've learned recently, like I should eliminate certain things. So always recognizing that, you know, there's in that documents and in our everyday and in our speech patterns, whether or not we are welcoming to folks or not. And recognizing too that the commonplace may actually not be all that commonplace. There might be cultural differences. So not kind of assuming everyone understands what's happening, or making those assumptions that everyone's going to do it one way or the other, and being sensitive to that and those different cultural differences. It really kind of, anytime you are running a business and you're just kind of assuming that this common thing is going to happen, maybe break that down and look into why, and kind of explore how you introduce that to everybody. Again, with the budget, right? Finances, we like money. It helps a lot. So again, with the buying guidelines, with how do you and where do you spend money for your business and the things you need, definitely not shied away from. We do live in a capitalist society, and that may or may not disappear overnight. And so working within our boundaries right now is a real thing. Oops. But I do think that, trying to make sure that 10% of a yield is given away freely to the community that is historically marginalized and disadvantaged and can't access that yield, food, flowers, whatever it may be that you're growing, herbs and teas. Minimum 10% is just kind of a starting number. All of this, you don't have to do it all at once, but it's all stuff to kind of start building on, right? For us on our farm, closer to 30%, and even into like 40% right now, our food goes free of charge to the end recipient, which we're really stoked about. We're always trying to push that limit, right? And continue to strive for more access to food. And the same with sales, right? So we budget into our sales, paying and giving money to programs like Bolt or like land rent to the local tribes, or donating to AnAkA, a local native nonprofit. So we try to put that into our budget so it's there, so it doesn't surprise us. We planned for this. And then we have a variety of payment pathways in our farm that also kind of allow for people to self-select. I really do believe in people's autonomy and ability to like make the best decision for them. And I don't want to be making those decisions for folks. So really trusting in them to make the best decision. And I have another whole slide on that too. But payment pathways, a variety of ways for people to pay you and trusting them. Again, sharing knowledge freely and collaborating with folks. So talking directly with Native tribes in your area, outreaching to them and asking what they need, and then finding out if you can connect them to someone who can provide or service that need, or if you can do that directly, right? But not assuming that they need what you have, or assuming you know the solution to their what you've perceived as their problems, but really getting to know that community and supporting them the best way that they're asking for. And again, advocacy. I mean, we can use our businesses to advocate for legal change as well. And that's definitely in the last slide. So here are buying guidelines. Ours for Good Rain Farm for Hosquia are to the right. I think everyone sees it to your right in the yellow and white box there, not the triangle. So we prioritize Black, Indigenous, and other people of color owned businesses. And definitely we try to supply local, so USA made, even though that's kind of a doozy when you really look into it. And these guidelines, honestly, so I shop a lot at People's Food Co-op, and they also have buying guidelines for how they source and supply the grocery store. And I kind of adopted those as my personal buying guidelines. So when I buy groceries, when I need to buy hardware for my home, when I'm looking for furniture, right, I kind of go through these same kind of guidelines as well. So I try to purchase used, and there's a lot of ways to do that. Try to buy local. I go through lots of co-ops. I like co-ops, and knowing who isn't, like a union supported business is also important. Hiring custom crafters, and then we go for big boxes, but also still knowing where those big boxes stand and lie. And all of that is to say, like, I don't, the Ace Hardware, they're a franchise, so like Subway or something. Like that owner and we may not totally share all the same values and whatnot, but they're also a local member of my community, and they're an owner of that franchise. So like our interactions and them having to like rely on the community to support them makes a huge difference in how more easily it is to like communicate with a business if an issue is occurring, or some troubles and concerns come up, right? I still find that like the doorway to conversation is more open sometimes in those spaces than not. Than say like I don't hold my breath for Home Depot to be a better business. And then this little triangle of hierarchy of ethical shopping came from the story of stuff. I don't know if you've ever, they have some documentaries and books and stuff that are cute, but the story of stuff. And of course, you see it kind of follows the same buying guidelines, right? Well, first they're like, can you go without, wear it out, right, repair, but they land in buy used, which is where I start with my purchasing. So, oops. And then to dive a little deeper into payment pathways on the farm within our organization. So we do a lot of government subsidies. So we accept SNAP, food stamps, women, infant, and children, and the senior nutritional something or another. All these acronyms you got to remember. And it does take a little extra back end paperwork and documentation, but it's huge. It's huge for folks to be able to take advantage of this access they have to this money and actually be able to spend it. Excuse me. Because there's actually a lot of hurdles to being able to spend food stamps, which is just so frustrating. For my farm, we had to start out working with farmers markets before we can independently run the subsidies ourselves now. And even then, I still have to team up with a local nonprofit to be able to take advantage of and help my food stamp customers use double up food bucks. So again, a lot of collaboration has to happen to be able to do a lot of these things. But it's so amazing. It's so important to be able to accept this money and let people pay for food. I find that sometimes people are really hesitant to take advantage of our scholarship fund to take things for free. That I guess doesn't sit well with folks. I think there might be a lot of shame and guilt around that. But really encouraging people to like be able to use the resources they have and take advantage of these is really important for us. We have payment plans, so people pay over the course of 5 months for a CSA. And we do sliding scale. So again, with scarcity mindset and trusting our community, sliding scale is one of those pricing points that really like tests that. I find that in talking with other farmers and within ourselves, like that can be an issue sometimes. But last year, like everyone who paid above market rate, like was the same number of people who purchased below market rate. So they exactly like this is community wealth redistribution, community supporting each other. They're like directly supporting and making an impact. And it's really awesome to see that come to fruition. And I've definitely heard from folks in a few studies. I was talking to some folks at the Wazoo Extension in Vancouver that the farm side food stalls and shacks and whatnot, those farm stands, they tend to do really well on not having anyone there and just like trusting community to drop money into the money box. Folks never seem, none of the farmers reported coming up super short or having like excessive robberies or losing money. So like community really responds well to being trusted. And you got to trust that they love to be trusted. Like you got to trust people to be trustworthy. And then we do our own in-house scholarship fund for the farm. So we do a lot of fundraising This year, that also has been offset through the Oregon Food Bank. We've worked with Growing Gardens, and we also do a significant amount of fundraising just from individuals who drop into our on our shop. You could just purchase and donate to our scholarship fund, and that's really awesome. And all of these different payment pathways apply towards our add-ons. So we work with local vendors, again, women-owned, Native-owned, primarily, who we seek out, and we're really intentional with who we do wholesale with and vend with as well. Like, who else are we promoting through our business? Where are we putting ourselves behind? And they all qualify. The mushroom, bread, and coffee all qualifies for food stamps and scholarship fund and all of that. And then home delivery, both for folks that just want convenience. In COVID, this became really important for everybody to be able to have like low or no contact food delivery. But even before COVID and even now, there are folks who just struggle to leave the home easily, who have access and mobility differences. And so being able to offer home delivery really like helps us support all of our community and make sure that they can get food easily. And so our scholarship fund also covers home delivery if needed. So like, say someone comes in, the SNAP food stamps are automatically on a payment plan because of the way it all works on the back end with the nonprofit. So they're doing a payment plan covering their CSA share, maybe an add-on, and then they can also apply for a scholarship fund to cover home delivery, right? So you can kind of mix and match things to make it all as accessible as possible. And it's not like maybe the most streamlined yet. We've hijacked our website for all of this, but it's the beginning of an attempt, and you can't improve if you don't try it first. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about Save Our Seeds, and especially around sharing knowledge and how important it is. So for us, Save Our Seeds began out of my frustration that I have to buy back, and I don't have to just buy it at market rates, but a lot of indigenous seeds are rare. So they're rare, they're heirloom, they're exotic. So they get an upcharge too. So they're not just you're not just buying any bean, you're buying this indigenous bean. So there's this extra upcharge on it. And I have to then, as the farm business or as an individual, accessing those seeds is really difficult and costly. So we started our Save Our Seeds program so that we got a grant to buy seeds and put together the programming so that together as a community, we can learn to save seeds, which is so important to have this knowledge and this information throughout our community. And anyone in an apartment or on a farm, right? Anybody can participate in Save Our Seeds program. And together we can learn the skill set, like with our hands. We have winnowing bowls and sifting trays and everything that goes out to folks to process the seed saving and to do it. With supporting emails and videos along with it. But that way we can buy a little bit of these costly seeds. A lot of seed companies aren't super welcoming to that idea of like giving 10% away of their yield and whatnot. Or they say they do donation programs, but like it's kind of whatever's excess and not specific as some of these like higher valued and more highly profitable seed, right? So there's still some like holding on to that and not releasing it to indigenous communities. So together we can learn the knowledge of seed saving, save the seed, multiply the seed, our goal is to receive some of the seed back so that our little package turns into more and more over time so that we could grow it in a mass and in a yield that we could actually consume it in. instead of 5 little bean plants. Like you can't make much of a meal with just 5 little bean plants sometimes. And then also send our excess seed each year back to those indigenous communities, wherever they are, because natives have been relocated all over the place. So it's kind of just sharing our indigenous foods again back out. And that's kind of been our response to this information hoarding. And I feel like I'm always nagging people to like let me attend things for free and to learn things. And so that we can continue to share it and return this knowledge back to our community and return these foods back to our communities, and lowering that paywall. That is a big hurdle for us. So that's where Save Our Seeds educational hands-on CSA came from, came out of some frustration. And then the last thing I really wanted to dive into was land back. And this idea of these are scripts from our land acknowledgement on our website. And I think a lot of people think, I hear a lot of people be like, oh, so you just want like everyone to leave America and what? Go back to Ireland? There's no way that island can take on all these people. And that's not at all kind of the idea behind land back. It's really about who controls the land and who's stewarding the land and who's making decisions on how this land is cared for and treated and utilized. And not about evicting people. It's about returning that stewardship back to the original occupants of these various lands and locations. And so land back definitely incorporates donating land back to tribes, or returning land, or supporting in mutual aid efforts where you help fundraise for someone to be able to afford to purchase a home and own a little plot of land. It'll definitely kind of break through some of these walls we've created around private and public access and land, but also includes kind of that voluntary rent and taxation I spoke to earlier. So calculating a percentage of your monthly budget to donate to a local tribe or community. And something that has been happening on a few farms in tandem with land trusts and whatnot are also cultural easements and welcoming tribes back to land, so that they can gather important materials, crafting materials, and clothing materials or building materials, but also collecting foods and medicine as well through these cultural easements. And I think there's a lot of potential there as well, for supporting tribes. And then our farm, I just found out, it's been so long, no one notified me, but we are on the reparations map for Black and Indigenous farmers, which is a Soul Fire farm and Northeast something or another farm nonprofit put together this really cool map. So I would definitely go check it out as well, and see what really cool farm and food sovereignty projects are happening all over the country. And I think ultimately the world is the hope. So it'd be pretty cool to see that map grow. Yeah, those are just some of my thoughts on like practical, actionable things to start working on, right? I know that like we're all strapped mentally and emotionally and financially, but it's important to kind of start budgeting and making intentional time for all of these, and really kind of confronting the white supremacy we've all been brought up in, and have to like disassemble at all this colonialism and even capitalism, and having to like figure out when those come up in us and when we think about our businesses or our farms and how that influences our decisions, and start, try to breaking those down. Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. That's great. It's super helpful to hear from the perspective of an individual and as a potential farm business owner, which I believe many of the people here are or aspire to be. Really helpful to know like everyday ways to be engaged. There was one question, and then I think we'll move right into to hearing from AnAkA. Just wondering if your farm is a 501c3 or if you've structured it as a for-profit company.
Yeah, our farm has been a sole proprietorship and is now an LLC. So it is a for-profit company. Yeah.
Cool, great. And we'll have more time for more general conversation after hearing from AnAkA and Javier. And thank you, Jonathan, for putting the resources in the chat. That's very helpful. Everyone can find them there. With that, we'll turn it over to AnAkA.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Thanks for coming back this week. I'm AnAkA. I'm here representing Black Oregon Land Trust, which is a new 501c based in Oregon. We're called BOLT for short. Last week, we were talking about the history of Oregon, how it was an exclusionary state for Black folks, and how that's led to there being a necessity for an acceleration for land rights and reclamation for us in Oregon. So I'm just going to be presenting about BOLT today. I'd also like to point out that I think it's pretty cool that all of our presenters today are wearing red. Just saying, some sort of power thing going on here. I think that's pretty cool. All right, let me enter full screen. Okay, can I get a thumbs up, Jeffrey, that you can see the screen? Okay, cool. Thank you, Jeffrey. All right, Black Oregon Land Trust. Here's a beautiful illustration of our initials that our sister Mia did. So we're a community land trust. There's a few different types of land trusts. And a community land trust is a nonprofit org that holds land permanently in trust for communities to make land permanently available for housing, farming, conservation, or open space. And in honor of the resilience and strength of our ancestors who persevered and held onto their agricultural roots, we're launching Black Oregon Land Trust. So we're able to have land for generations to come because all of the systems that have been created are made so we're not able to have generational wealth. So we're creating a space for us to hopefully have, not hopefully, to surely have generational wealth through land reclamation. Let's see how I can switch the page here. Oops, I switched it too fast. Oh no, I didn't. Cool, learning new things, sorry. Okay, so Black Oregon Land Trust will acquire land for Black farmers and land tenders to steward with security. A lot of the language in this presentation I'm making is manifestation language because we just began in 2020. So we're still very early in the process. I should have said that earlier. So these efforts will preserve Black agriculture practices, enable Black farmers to provide fresh, healthy food for their families, like what Michelle is doing on her farm, and build generational wealth and equity. So we said this a little bit last week, but just in case you weren't here last week, or just in case you need a refresher, why are there so few Black farmers and landowners in Oregon? Well, we didn't get the 40 acres and a mule because we were Black, and we were, even though we were, quote, freed from enslavement, we still didn't get land after that. And then there still is systematic racism from USDA and other governmental agencies, private lenders, and the legal system, which led to a lot of land loss, land theft, and dislocation. We used to have land, at least we used to work a lot of land, but we've lost a lot of it since then. And now, and in addition, Oregon's founding constitution had exclusionary laws which prohibited Black folks from owning land or even living in the state. So Oregon specifically is really behind in access for Black folks to land, but overall, the US got a lot of work to do. So yeah, here's the problem. And then there's also an opportunity. So Black farmers account for only 1.4% of the country's 3.4 million food producers. Black owned farms account for 0.5% of total farmland in the US. And it's actually negative 0.1% of farmland in Oregon is Black owned. It's not just 0.1. So I know you're like, what? You can have a negative percentage? Yes, you can. In Oregon, you can. So it's a very small percentage of farmland in Oregon is Black owned, basically. And the average age, but the opportunity is the average age of Oregon farmers is now 60 and has been on the rise for 4 decades. So that's why RFC Changing Hands Council is creating space for us to connect more with older farmers and people who are younger or just new in wanting to have land. So in the coming 2 decades, a huge generational shift will result in almost 2/3 of Oregon's agricultural land changing hands. And so with the growing momentum for racial justice, more and more farmland owners are interested in pursuing a transfer of ownership to next generation Black farmers. A lot of us have farming in our lineages, but don't necessarily have access to land. So we're doing our best to create that bridge between the two. For example, my father's a cowboy and has always wanted horses and wanted to be on the land, but he hasn't been able to create enough wealth to even buy his own house. So yeah, there's like a huge gap there in terms of access and resources. I'm having a hard time switching things. Okay. So then there's also the issue, when you don't have access to land, you don't have control or access to how you eat or your food sovereignty. So here's just a few facts about that. 1 in 5 Black families in Oregon face hunger issues. And that actually might be even a bigger number now since 2020, and children weren't able to really get as much food because a lot of Black children get their food from school systems, like having food at school. Black farmers have disproportionately lost land, money, and workforce due to COVID-19, and many have been determined ineligible for relief. And then there's an increasing need for Black families to have accessible housing opportunities, fresh food, and sustainable community. We're all struggling right now, but Black folks are struggling a lot because we were already put in a position that wasn't beneficial for us in terms of access to food and housing and just ways to really support each other as a community. So our vision is that Black farmers and land tenures in Oregon will collectively own our land securely and permanently. And through right relationship with the land, we'll build our soil, our health, and our wealth and our sovereign communities for generations to come. So we have a few different pillars, which is land access and preservation, which includes acquiring secure and affordable land for farmers, land tenures, and family. We're really focused on making sure that it can be at accessible prices. We're also focusing on environmental conservation and Indigenous land access, which is really connected with what Michelle was speaking about in terms of cultural easements and creating more connections within the Afro-Indigenous community, because I personally am also Indigenous. Like all Black people in America pretty much are mixed with Indigenous blood. Like I'm not going to say every single one of us, pretty much every single one of us. And it may not be written down on paper or proven in any type of way, but we know. So we need to have a connection there with the land, of course, with people who are Indigenous to the land and may not be Black, and people who are Black and also Indigenous to the land. There's not that much separation there. So our pillar is farming and food justice, which is to have sovereignty over what we're eating. We all know, I'm going to assume we all know about food deserts and redlining and things like that. That's why it's important that we all get into farming and growing our food. But Black folks are, we have the most junk food around us in our neighborhoods and things. So then the third one is cultural sovereignty. We have a lot of culture around land and food and farming. So we want to be able to remember that and practice it with each other. And then we also want to reclaim our relationship with the land, because as former slaves that were working the land all the time, we have a lot of ancestral memory with the land that needs to be healed or at least reclaimed and acknowledged. And then we also want to dive into cultural easements, as I mentioned earlier, and create systems that are non-hierarchical, traditional models of governance or leadership. because there is a way to share power with each other, and everybody has their own strengths and their ways of creating leadership that feeds their spirit and creates a space for them to flourish. So this is just a list of our board members at the moment. We have a president, a director of food equity at EcoTrust, who also co-founded Black Food Fund. I'm currently the administrative assistant. And then Mia is our community outreach coordinator. Olivia is our legal liaison, and Kiddis is our policy and advocacy director. But we're also many other things, as you can see here. Most of us are herbalists or earth workers. I'm a farmer by blood, not necessarily by muscle yet, but I'm on my way. And I'm also a filmmaker, photographer. And then we have most of us, I'm not a mother yet, but most of us in the group are also mothers, which is a really big part of our mission as well, which I'll get to. So this is our launch timeline at the moment. We've established Bolt as an Oregon-based land trust. Complete, all caps, woo woo. And then our step 2 is developing organizational structure and relationships with community stakeholders. So that's the phase that we're in at the moment. We've had funding support, which has been really great in terms of developing our structure and like creating payment systems for folks in our group. And so now we're mostly focusing on building relationships, which is why I'm making this presentation, to hopefully build more relationships. And then our next stage is to raise capital funding to purchase an initial 40 acres or so as a trust. We're looking to raise to buy in Corbett area because that's already an area we're farming in, which I'll get to soon. And then our next stage will be to transfer stewardship to Black farmers and land tenders. Our first stewardship will be with Womb Home Collective, which is one of our pods, which is a collective that's focusing on sovereign birthing practices and creating a space to give birth, as well as creating space for mothers, especially mothers that are maybe not in traditional family dynamic structures. And then the 5th step for the 2 years is to collaborate with Black Food Fund to provide ongoing mentoring, technical assistance, and operating capital of farmers, but there will be other things as well. So our organizational structure looks like this right now. We have a board of directors, an advisory council, and trustees, and then eventually we're going to have members and then our greater community. We haven't gotten to having members quite yet. We're still working on the system. But yeah, we would love to have an advisory council of elders, youth, and stakeholders. And then the members will be land tenders and farmers, and then the community will be where we offer widespread programming. We are really focused on community decision-making. Becoming a nonprofit has been really funny for us because we have to do things like have board meetings and all of these like structural governing type things, but we're also trying to, implement focusing on our relationship with first and foremost, and collective visioning, and having pods or co-ops that have leadership and autonomy within the trust. This is a picture of Shantae and Art, who run Mudbone Grown. Shantae is our president of Bolt as well. They have a farm already and have been farming for many, many years. So they have a lot of wisdom and community around these topics. So our pod and co-op models are currently the Womb Home Collective, an Elder House, Conservation, and CSAs. The most developed ones we have at the moment are the CSAs because Mudbone Grown Farms is providing those, and then Home Collective will be our second most developed pod. The Elder House and the Conservation pods are still a little bit down the line in development. But the idea is that each pod will have decision-making powers on the board of representation, and they'll have leasing of the land, and it may not necessarily all be on the same plot. Yeah, so we're starting small with our scale because we want to be strong in our foundation and be really structured, so then when we leave this earth, there will be a structure that can continue and be sustainable. So we're starting with Womb Home Collective and Bolt headquarters in Corbett. We actually were able to purchase a yurt this year, which is really exciting, which will be our first office space, headquarters space, where we'll be having programming hopefully by the summertime this year. So yeah, this first 2 years, we're focusing on building a scalable model for training governments and land tending as a trust. And then years 3 to 5, we'll expand beyond Corbett to other pieces of land through purchasing and donations that we'll receive across the state, and be able to match farmers to land through a pipeline model that we're still in development. So yeah, our community stakeholders will be farmers and aspiring farmers. We have partnerships already with Black Food Fund, Black Food Sovereignty Coalition, Good Rain Farm, shout out, Black Futures Farm, Oregon Food Bank, Kairos PDX, and Coalition of Oregon Land Trusts, Oregon Agricultural Trust. The Coalition of Oregon Land Trusts has been super supportive. We've had a really great time just learning more about land trusts, and we're super excited to keep partnering with all of these community stakeholders. And yeah, our leadership development will be held through workshops with community, relationship building, upcoming advocacy trainings, pathways to farming training, and farmer leadership, which I'm really excited about because, you know, even though I'm a member of BULL, I also will need training as a farmer. So we're all like in different parts of the process, all of us. And then we also envision having partnerships with youth. We're already partnered with Kairos PDX. And, you know, like I said, a few of us already have children in schools and everything. So we want to create high school agricultural programming. And then we're also really passionate about partnering with elders, creating an elder council, partnering with elder farmers, and creating a housing pod in the future for our elders, where our parents and other guardians or people in our family will be able to spend their last few years on the land, because elder homes, yeah, I think we think they also need some revitalization, the concept of an elder home. So yeah, it's a lot of dreams. Policy and advocacy, we're collaborating with Oregon Food Bank, Oregon Food Policy Group on legislation advocacy. We're advocating for Black land access and infrastructures and COVID relief. And we're advocating for Justice for Black Farmers Act, which is the emergency relief for farmers of color. Okay, so this is kind of where we're at right now. Currently, we have 20 acres that we're leasing to own in Corbett, Oregon, which is Mudbone Grown Farms. And then this year, we're getting ready to launch a capital campaign to purchase land as a trust officially. And we've established Womb Home Collective as the initial pod to focus on birthing sovereignty along with food sovereignty as kind of the foundational elements. And then we're just continuing to develop our community relationships. And these are our current positions. And our current needs is capital funding. Like Michelle said, we are in a capitalist society right now, and we need to buy land. So our goal is 1 million. That's going to be the goal. We haven't officially launched it yet, but I'll put a link to a place you can donate through our fiscal sponsor in the chat. And then we also are seeking technical support with capital campaigns, or people who have done capital campaigns before and have support that they would offer. And then also just building our network of community partners with land trust expertise. Lots of pictures of Shantae in here. Shout out Shantae. So yeah, that was my presentation. Thank you again for your patience. And yes, I'll put the link to our donation space in here, just in case anybody's feeling extra excited.
That's perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that. Super exciting. There were a couple of questions, and I'm gonna just try to hold. We're gonna hold those questions till the end so we can kind of have a full dialogue about them all together. Especially because it looks like they're kind of more general questions at this point. So we'll jump into hearing from Javier. Thanks, Javier.
Thank you for the presenters as well. Let me see. I'm trying to figure it out how I can increase the.
I think you press slide on the left a little bit.
On the left.
And then up a little bit, and then one to the left.
And okay, slide right there.
Yeah, And then,
I
nope,
think that's going to
I
add
lied. No, that's wrong. Yep, you're right.
slideshow. Right?
Slideshow, that's slideshow. There we go. Beautiful.
So thank you so much. And I just want to ask permission to the owners of the camp before I refer to all of you. And with that said, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to all of you. And again, my name is Javier Lara, and I did presented last week on behalf of CAPACES Leadership Institute, specifically the AnAkA program. I do want to kind of just go through this slides real quickly because that's something that I shared at the end of the presentation, and I'm going to jump in. Just for the ones who probably missed this part, I talk about the Bracero Program, and basically just to summarize it, it is the program. It was active for 22 years in the U.S. It started during World War II. 5 million people, braceros in this case, were active during this time. And it is still, in present time, the largest foreign worker program in the US history. And for us, it's important to bring this up because we've been having this relationship with the US land specifically, and now Canada. But the legacy in the US, it hasn't been the best for, not just for us in this case, the braceros who came from Mexico, but as as my peers presented, nor for the African American community or Asian Pacific Islanders or the Native community. So in other words, any ethnicity who has been through the system as a labor force in the U.S., agriculture sector still is the most vulnerable labor force in the U.S. In fact, we've still been excluded when it comes to labor rights. And that is why I put this, that we are still dehumanized, in this specific system. And again, I just put domestic services because it is also another labor force area that is very vulnerable when it comes to the system in the US. And of course, I did share about me crossing the border and the legacy of the Bracero program that brought me here. And what is really important here to me to ask this question, or I internally asked this question in the past, is what is it? Is it really? Am I really here just because of my arms and my back, just like the other generations before me, or do I really have something else to offer to this society, to this country, to this culture, to the diverse communities that do the makeup of this country? And basically, that's why, asking this question, I want to jump into, yes, we do. We have a lot to offer, more than just the arms and the back. And with this in mind, I want to tell you that AnAkA, the program of AnAkA, we are based in Woodburn, Oregon, and we are, AnAkA stands for Tour Island. In this case, it's very similar to the philosophy or that spirituality of where we come from. In this case, naming this continent that is now known as America, we used to call it AnAkA. In fact, the first legal document in this continent, written in Spanish, it still refers to the AnAkA people. So having this in mind, AnAkA for us stands to all the ancestral traditions and beliefs and all the civilizations before us, So we're trying to bring back the spirituality behind us, the way we see life, the way we see society, and of course the relationship with plants, and then the specific with Mother Earth. So with this in mind, I think that this picture, that you're going to see a lot of pictures, because my goal here is that you can take these images and have a smile on your face when you remember this presentation, not so much about what I'm going to share, but what your eyes were exposed to, in this case, the images that you're going to encounter. So with this in mind, AnAkA means surrounded by water. It comes from the Nahuatl language. And one of the things that I feel like I want to highlight and our program specifically, even though we are under the umbrella of CAPACES Leadership Institute, we have several programs under the AnAkA program. And we do have agriculture. So in this specific area, we focus on bringing any traditional herb, medicinal herb, edible plant, anything that is related to the different ethnicities that make what is now known Mexico, Central, South America, and even here, the brothers and sisters of the North. So we can talk about, you know, plants that traditionally you make a specific dish with it, or also traditionally you do a healing, a spiritual healing with a specific herb. Also specific herbs that you don't eat, you only use them for ceremonial purposes or for offering purposes. So anything that is related to that, agriculture focus on that. The cultural arts aspect, we trying to bring everything that is related to the cosmological approach of what art comes through. In other words, like the textiles, you know, a lot of the designs, the textiles represents the fauna, the stars, you know, represents a lot of our ancestral philosophies. So we focus on teaching our youth about the clay, textiles, and also our oral stories, right? So indigenous languages, we also focus on that. We feel like there's nothing more powerful than what we have as a true value as human beings and earth, which is our words and our body. So that's the only two things that we pay a lot of attention to share to the youth. Pay attention to what comes out of your mouth and respect your body, right? Because that's the only two true things that you have on the earth based on our ancestral approach. So languages, you know, we have to protect languages because that's that's the most valuable thing that we have, right? So traditional wealth, we do a lot of ceremonies. We introduce a lot of our youth for the first time into a swelach, you know, for ours it's called Temazcali. A lot of our youth are scared. It's the first time they got it, but they got it, you know, they got to encounter sooner or later, whoever feels it in their heart. And eventually they do, you know, they encounter it. Is one of the most amazing encounters. We also engage in sharing with them what the ceremonies is all about. We feel like we live in a society that eating a French fries in McDonald's or in a processed food is very okay. But if you see an older man talking to a rock and offering tobacco, it's something really crazy that just doesn't make any sense, you know? For us, it's totally the opposite, right? They need to understand this. They need to value why we speak to the rocks. Why do we speak to the trees? Why do we sing to the plants, right? And again, culinary arts, we have so much to share that we have shared to the world, right? And that's something that we always focus with the kids. You know, you need to understand that enchiladas and salsa doesn't really make the heart of who we are. That's what you see out there that is so popular, but you need to understand, you know, a lot more than that. So culinary arts for us is very important. So, and this is something that, again, I wanted to highlight what the program does. And we have values, you know, we focus on these values that you see on the screen. I'm sure a lot of you are very familiar with this, and I'm sure you practice them in your own nucleus with your own family and friends and relationships. But something that I do wanna highlight here is that Tequetl or Tequio also, which is the second value that you see in the list. And that one basically, it has to do with, you have to give back to your community. Like a lot of our youth and families that participate in the program, they come here because they want to create something greater than themselves. But at the same time, it depends on themselves. So you come and you donate your time, you know, you come and you give something that you have for the community. And the other one is balance. And the reason why I want to highlight the last value in the list is because that's something that a lot of us have lost. You know, a lot of us, we have lost the sensibility of who we really are in the center of our heart. You know, a lot of us cannot engage with a plant. You cannot talk to a plant because it doesn't make any sense. So that to me is like we're losing sensibility. We can engage with technology, we can engage in other levels, but with something that is not a humankind, or something that doesn't talk to you, that already gives you a silence and the beauty of it, it's just hard for someone to engage. For us, we feel like our youth and our families coming from the Toltec lineage in ancient culture is like, you need to get back into your heart and get to know your heart again, right? We are the people that the Toltecs is a lineage that they knew their heart as nobody else has done it on earth. And because, you know, if you can be able to go back to your heart, you can engage with any living thing, even if you see it or if you don't see it, it doesn't really matter, it's there. So that's for us, is a really important value that we teach our kids. The Toltecs, they call them mitote, that's why you have in your mind, you know, you think about all this stuff, but you don't save time for your heart. So the first thing that we do in the AnAkA community is we stop the mitote, we stop what is not real. You know, the fight in the house, the bills that you need to pay, the beautiful car that you keep dreaming about, you know, the new cell phone, all the drama that is makeup in your life, you know, you need to stop that, and let's stop that mitote, and let's engage in our heart. That's the first thing that we do. So again, those are the values that we practice. And of course, you know, another beautiful value that I like to highlight as the last one is reciprocity. We tend to live in a culture that everything you want is I want, and I want, but you hardly ever give something back, right? So for us, the youth, they need to know that if Mother Earth is giving you everything that you need to keep your body alive, you have to give something back, right? You have to. So, and that's the picture on the left. You see the little girl, Gabi, she's giving the first plate before anybody eats to Mother Earth. We have in the upper right-hand side of the screen, a basket full of beautiful harvests that we did on the farm. And that went all the way to the deep hole of Mother Earth. And then we bury it and we sing and then we give thanks. So we do exercise reciprocity as the first thing that we do at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season. We bring elders who teach us how to do that. They do it in the native language. And it's a beautiful ceremony that we do every year. So we operate in different locations, and this is specific pictures, the pictures that you see, it's called our community garden. It is based on the Farm Worker Housing Development Corporation. It's a community that they allow us to garden there, and most of the families live in this farm worker housing place. But you see right there, this is the spirit that we have. You know, we're not immigrants. The lady who is wearing the little boy on her back, she's a Zapotec lady. In fact, Zapotec is his first language. And she has the amazing ethics. You can see she can put the boy on the back and she start transplanting. That is our spirit. We carry the legacy of the past generations. We don't mind, we do it, but we are proud of saying, I'm gonna take all the weight that this historical discrimination and exclusion has been given to us, and we still carry the legacy of the ancestors, but we are here and we're moving forward just like those plants you see in the picture. You see some also our youth, in the summer, they practice, they're having the little boost in the garden, so people in the community who walk by and they come and get their produce. We just put a flat rate, like everything for 99 cents. It's just for the kids to start learning. And then we also save the money for scholarship for them, or for any use that they decide they want to do. Basically, it is their dance, and we just help them to pursue it. Also, traditional kitchen. We have a traditional kitchen about 10 minutes away from the first garden. And there we do amazing traditional dishes. Again, we bring specific plants that a lot of these communities have ancestral relationship. And then we the ones that you use them for cooking, once the youth learn how to germinate the seed, transplant it, they grow it, then they harvest it, and now we bring them to the kitchen and we unify families and kids, and they teach them what to do with this plant, traditionally speaking, what comes out of this, what amazing dish comes out of this. So you see that, and then we also teach them how to use the ancient tools, right? So the kids learn how to do it. And then you see the little girl there, she's graining some pepper and corn with a specific condiments that they grew. And again, we use a lot of the old ways. A lot of people still cook with firewood over there. So we do it over here as well. So the kids, we know that they're gonna grow up with an electric stove or gas propane stove in the house. They're probably never gonna expose themselves to starting a fire, talking to their grandfather fire and asking permission, welcome the fire to the kitchen and start preparing their meals. So this gives them, again, this experience, this knowledge, this tradition, and also they enjoy an amazing dish, and they know now where it comes from and how it grows and the whole process. We also have a strong relationship with the cacao. We work with cooperatives from the Musco people. So we share we do the ceremonies with the cacao. They learn how to do a ceremony with the cacao. It's a very sacred seed for us, very, very special seed. And we teach the youth how to do it, how to make chocolate with no sugar. And if we use sugar, how to find a good balance. We also mix the traditional chocolates, like from a lot of the grandmothers, how they still do it in the South. And the daughters of them, they are here now, they've been here for 30 years, and they share the recipes with the kids. And you see the teenager, they're graining the cacao, making it paste. And you see this little beautiful girl patching the cacao, making bars out of it. And you see the other girls in the bottom right hand, if they don't grate it with the metate, with the stone mill, they'll do it with the hand mill. The beauty of it is that they making a relationship with the cacao, a sacred seed that it has to be honored for us, and then not just enjoy it with the blind eyes, but they need to understand that it's a lot more. And then, those are good examples. We also have Herbalism, medicinal garden. That's another unit. That's another garden separate from the one you saw in the first location. This is FHDC 2. So here we have all the medicinal herbs that we have relationship with. There's about 54 varieties. We call them abuelas, grandmothers. And every summer we have the kids who go and harvest flowers where they need to harvest flowers. They go and harvest leaves where they need to harvest leaves. And then we wait for the fall and they harvest roots where they need to harvest roots. And then again, we do workshops about what you can do out of it, right? With this, we want to break the cycle of, yes, you can easily open your wallet and go to any pharmacy and support the pharmaceutical industry. But also, the grandmother and the grandfathers had a different way. And this is how they did it. And it's up to you when you grow up what you want to do, of course, but at least we share the knowledge. We do an amazing tobacco ceremony and sage ceremony with these seeds before we germinated them. And then once we harvest, we also do a beautiful ceremony at the end. They also make their own soap. They make their syrups, they make their tinctures. They get very creative. They make their own labels. You see their labels that the kids design it, and then they vote. They put how many beans in the little can. Whoever collects the more beans, that's the sign that it wins. It's a very beautiful engage that they do and they learn. We also do languages. Again, we doing right now Mixtec and Zapotec. You see the pictures. This is really powerful because for us, this is a statement of resistance. We live in a period where there's a linguistic genocide going on, right? There's about 12 languages that control the whole world. And every day a language died. So for us, this is an exercise of saying, we can put our 2 cents in this generation and doing something about it. In this case, we are teaching this, but not us as the mothers, the moms and the fathers who speak the language, who are native speakers, right? And a lot of them, they're not teachers. They're just mom and dad who are farm workers. And it took us a year to tell them, you need to speak your language. You are beautiful. We are beautiful. We come from powerful languages. You can bring it back. And now the moms can stand up and teach a language in Zapotec or Mixtec. Very powerful. And, amazing project. Beautiful to see the moms. We call them community teachers. Very beautiful to see them blossom like a flower in the classroom and teaching the youth, just like you see in the flower in the exercise that one of the mom asked them to draw in the paper. So that's another program under AnAkA. And we also have cultural arts, and that is virtual. So we working in partnership with the Mexican Cinematography Institute. So there's a big movement in Mexico and Central America in which they support artists who are bringing through film and pictures the struggle of indigenous and Afro-Mexicans, in Mexico and in Central America. So we have a list of the films that we select and the Mexican government provided to us. And every month we have what we call them Noche de Cine, like movie night. So once a month, we present one of the films who is most of the time is in a native language with Spanish subtitles. And then they bring the struggle of the Afro-Mexicans and also the indigenous communities that are going through. So far we have presented some of the issues of the Tzotzil people, the Mije people, the Otomi people, and the Nahua people in the state of Mexico. So again, different topics. And every 6 months we have a film festival. So like every month we present the film, and then in June we present the film festival. We summarize the films that we presented the 5 months before that, and then in December we presented another film festival. And again, that's just, it shows you one of the other things that we do. This is, to me, this is really important. And what the reasons why is because a lot of these kids, like you see the little girl in the middle, she's holding a very traditional herb in her hand. And one day we did a tomato test, tasting afternoon. So all the kids got together and we brought like 7 different varieties of tomato and potatoes. And they were holding them in their hands. We closed their eyes and we asked them, taste each tomato and let me know what do you feel. And the reason why we do this is because a lot of us indigenous people, we think the tomato comes from Italy and we think the tomato comes from Idaho. And it's like, no, we give tomato to the world. We give potato to the world. You need to know this. Because once you know this, your heart is going to understand what kind of power do you have. We give the corn to the world. We give the chiles to the world. I mean, we have put so much to humanity, but you need to understand that your abuelos, your grandfathers did that, and your grandmothers did that. The tomato doesn't come from the store or doesn't come from Italy. The potato is not come from McDonald's or Idaho. It comes from your heart and from your ancestral, your lineage. And then once these kids know this, it's amazing to see their smile, not just the flavor, but to understanding and processing something so powerful. And that's what AnAkA focused on, right? So with this in mind, you saw in the presentation, we have our locations that are apart, right? Our soilage is in a different place. The traditional kitchen is in a different place. The greenhouse is in a different place. The gardens are in a different place, and our classrooms are in a different place. So we decided that we're going to center everything in one place. And so we're doing our fundraising campaign. We're going to start this month. And basically, we already collected $600,000. We're heading for $1,400,000 for this campaign, and we already almost halfway. But basically, the beauty of it is that if we center in one place, we will have everything there. And not just that, but it's going to open up the opportunity to more communities, right? This is the land. It's 60 acres. There's six ring homes, a huge barn. There's a 3-bedroom home. There's a 2 acres in production right now. And most of the land, the 60 acres, are just for grass growing. And there's also a portion of it just for Oregon oak. You can see the circle on the right picture, on the picture on the right. There's a circle of all trees, and those are Oregon oaks. So we are pursuing this land. And again, you know, we want to center there. We want to have our ceremony. We want to have our infrastructure as well. But for now, we feel like our stories are the ones who keep moving us forward. You know, this is Cristina, is our community teacher. She speaks Zapotec, and she's there germinating seeds. You can see the beauty of it is, like, even her testimony, she said, you know, she was embarrassed to speak her language. You know, we all know this story, right? And now she can stand up and she can teach not just her kids, but other kids how to speak Zapotec, right? So we want this richness in Oregon and Woodburn and Portland and Washington, anywhere, right? Because that is our power. Again, our language, our words. And this is another story, right? This is a youth. She's a high schooler. She didn't know any of this, but thanks to AnAkA, she learned it. And now she knows that she needs to honor her ancestors. You know, she says, "My antepasados, my ancestors." You know, she's moving forward with a whole different mind, with a whole different vision towards the world, right? So we dream that, of course, she's going to be a senator, and she might be the first Latina presidente, or the first indigenous president of the U.S. You know, you never know, right? But now she sees the world differently. And again, this is one of the reasons why we wanna center ourselves, and we wanna keep doing what we do. And the reason of why now is we've been practicing a lifestyle that is, I don't think it's taking us to a right direction at all, right? We love things. We live in a culture of consumism. We love to have things. There's not enough. There's not a line that it says this is enough. You know, the more you have, the more you're going to want. And also, again, we have lost the sensibility. So we do believe that we can propose, or at least practice, a different model, something different that can make us think that we can shift the direction, right? And it starts with the youth. We feel like the older people is hard. You can spend hours talking. They all have opinions, very strong opinions, but our focus is more towards the youth and the young little kids, right? They're a lot more easy to absorb, and then eventually they are the ones they're going to be making future decisions, not us. You know, we're just passing by a real quick moment here on Earth. So again, you know, we feel like it is powerful to take them to the mountain, to speak to the soul of the mountain, to bring tobacco, like you see in this circle. They offering tobacco and sage to the spirit, to the owner of the camp, in this case, this specific mountain, before they start understanding the native mushrooms that grow in Oregon, before they understanding the medicinal plants that grow in Oregon. You know, this is why now, because this young generation, they need to understand this, right? They need to understand the relationship with the soul of the mountain, the relationship with the center of this circle that we're making in the mountain. We believe this really strongly. And that's why, again, you know, we do what we do, and that is why we do it now. Again, you know, we feel like the food system is broken. We feel like what is given to our kids for food is unfortunately unknown what they even eating, what they put them in their mouth. So we feel like we do have something to offer, and it's not even us, it's just something that it was given to us from past generations. So we want to be able to produce for these communities what their grandfathers and grandmothers produced in the past that has been taken away. I was reading an article this morning in the newspaper that Mexico imports corn more than any other country in the world. When we give corn to humanity, now we have to buy it. So that's like a slap in the face to us, you know, that we have to buy corn, and we don't even know what we're buying. We don't even know what we're eating. So again, and that's why we feel like there's a lot of young people out there that inspire us to keep doing what we do. Like in this case, Aide Robles, her testimony, her story is very powerful, and we keep moving forward. I do feel like I want to stop here just by sharing this. If you want to follow us, if you have more questions about this campaign and what's coming on the new farm, what exactly we're going to be producing. I mean, there's a lot to talk about it. I just went through it in 20 minutes, but if you have more questions about what's ahead of AnAkA and when it comes to producing or whatever comes in your mind, just follow us. You can also contact Sophia. She's our leader when it comes to the fundraising campaign. Her email is right there. Again, we're going to start the kickoff of the campaign in Spanish the 28th, and we're still trying to find the right date for March because there's a lot of activities going on for us. But in March it will be in English. So just if you're interested, let us know, please. But thank you so much for the opportunity, and let's keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you, all three of you. That was incredible.